Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's weekly live immigration attorney chat here at Immigration for Couples. I'm attorney Megan Pastrana, and I'm happy to be with all of you. I already see we have tons of people who are joining us live and a lot of individuals who have been coming every week for a few weeks now. So it's great to see some familiar names. For those of you who are new, if this is your first Facebook Live, if this is the first time you are hearing or here on our channel here at Immigration for Couples, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our firm, Immigration for Couples. We're dedicated exclusively to helping couples across the nation and across the world in navigating the U.S. immigration process. And we host these weekly live attorney chats because we know that the immigration process can be very overwhelming. I like to call it an alphabet soup. There's K1s and CR1s and IR1s, and it's easy to get lost and overwhelmed. So these weekly chats are for all of us to be here in community and for me to give you clarity and answer questions about the immigration process. And we also have a free resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. The free resource center is very robust. I created it with, and my team and we created it with a lot of love and care and consideration for all of you. There's a relationship evidence guide, a free webinar that I encourage you to check out if you're just starting out in your immigration process. The webinar really dives into what you should know at the start of your immigration journey, what options are available to you, how to prove your relationship, and your next steps to win your case. And if you'd like to speak with me and meet with me privately, I'd love to chat with you, to learn more about your case and to help give you customized guidance. You're always welcome to schedule a consult 24/7 on our website, immigrationforcouples.com, or you can also call the office 317-247-5040, and Lisa and Taylor will help get you on my schedule. All right. So for those of you who have been here before, you know the drill. Tell me, where are you at in the world? I love to see that we have people all over the world. So where are you at currently? And Ginger, you're usually our first one in here, so it's great to see you. You've been watching for quite a while now. Love having you here, and I hope you're having a great day in the UK. Yes, I'm doing well too. Thank you. I'm enjoying the sun. Went on a nice walk early this morning with my puppies, and so I'm doing great. And Minnesota, welcome. Thanks for being with us. Robert from Sacramento, California, thanks for being with us. It's great to have you. And then I see we do have questions that are popping in the chat, and a lot of good mornings from New York. Oh, rainy Florida, but you're in Florida, so that's awesome. We have a lot of Floridians here. The Sunshine State. Our firm administrator Julie's in Florida too. So, and I spend a lot of time in Florida as well. New York. Good morning, Mohammed. Great to have you. Oh, that's great. Welcome. So this is your first live event. We're happy to have you. And if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat. All right. All right. So we have Kazakhstan, Wisconsin, another New York. This is great. All right. So last week we had a lot of questions and I wasn't able to get to all of them. I don't know if Jan is here with us today, but Jan, you had let us know that your fiance visa case was approved. And one of your questions was one of the last questions I wasn't able to get to. So I wanted to start with that here today. Jan's question was, so we have the fiance visa now. What happens next? What can we expect in terms of boarding the plane and coming to the US and going through customs? So if you have received your fiance visa, if that's been approved, first and foremost, check your visa. I know you'll be excited. Unfortunately, immigration can make mistakes. So first and foremost, check and make sure your name and your date of birth are correct, and pay attention to the expiration date on that visa. You have to make sure that you enter the US before that expiration date. And then in terms of getting on the airplane and coming to the US, every country is a little different. Some countries require, and this is a rule of the country, not US immigration, but the actual laws in that particular country, they have individuals pay a leaving tax or some kind of fee. So the Philippines, that's one of them. When you're departing the country, they'll have you, if you're departing the country with a fiance or spouse visa, for example, there's a fee that you have to pay. So you really need to look into your own country-specific rules on departure. The Philippines is another one where before you can leave, you have to complete a class, a course. And that's a requirement, again, of the government of the Philippines. So every country is a little different. So you'll want to familiarize yourself with those specific requirements of that country. Typically at your interview, the consular post would tell you about, hey, if you need to complete a class or something of that nature, but typically they won't let you know about fees. So just check with your local airport or the airline that you're flying with to find out, hey, I'm leaving the country on this fiance or spouse visa. Are there any fees that I need to be aware of? And then in terms of coming into the US, once you land in the US and you're going through customs, typically immigration, when they return your visa, will give you a sealed envelope. And that sealed envelope will say, do not open. So you don't want to open it. You'll have to take that sealed envelope when you're entering the country and you'll give that to customs upon entry. Now, immigration has actually started basically they're starting a process where instead of giving you a sealed envelope, they're doing everything electronically. So they're transitioning to more of an electronic format. So you might not get that envelope. That's something that's really new. We're still seeing clients that are still getting the sealed envelope, but we have also had clients where they say, hey, all you need to carry is your passport and your visa, and all of your data, all of your information is going to be transferred electronically. So that's something else that would happen at customs. And then from there, the customs is going to inspect your visa and they put a stamp in your passport, both for the spouse or the fiance visa. So that's just a little overview for Jan. I don't know if you're here with us today, but maybe if you watch it on the replay, that will hopefully answer the question that you had. All right. And so I have a bunch of other questions here today, so I'm going to dive into those. Okay. So you're already married. For the K3, I'm not actually applying for it. I'm doing it for the spouse section to see if we can get it faster approval on the I-130. So the K3, for those of you, see, I told you it's an alphabet soup. And so there's the K1s and K3s and CR1s. So for the K3 process, definitely check the USCIS website. They give instructions on how to apply for that. It doesn't hurt, to file for the K3. We've done that for some clients, but I'll tell you that the K3 is really a very archaic tool. It's really not something that USCIS uses anymore. They're rarely approved. They even say that on their website. So for those of you who don't know what the K3 is, or the I-130, maybe you don't know what that is. If you're married, you go through something called a spouse visa process, and that's a petition, an I-130 petition. Congress created this K3 option to give couples that are married and going through the spouse visa process another bite at the apple. And so the K3 was meant to give couples a faster option, because historically the fiance visa has always been a faster option than the spouse visa. Of course, there's always exceptions to that rule, but so Congress created this K3. And the idea is you'd file your I-130 petition and then you file this K3 application. And the K3 application, it doesn't have a fee. There seems to be a rumor out there that if you file it, it will make your I-130 petition go faster. That's actually not true. I've really talked with immigration officers about this specific rumor, and that it actually won't push your I-130 forward faster, but it doesn't hurt. I've told clients, it doesn't hurt to have two bites at the apple. But the reality is that the K3 and the I-130 petition are put in lines, and it's like a horse race. Whichever one gets to the front first is what immigration will review. The reason that the K3 is not really being used by immigration is the wait times are well over 18 months for the K3 visa, and the spouse visa usually sits at 12 months. So your spouse visa petition is going to always be the faster horse. And unless something changes in immigration right now, it's the I-130 process, the spouse visa process, that's faster. But it doesn't hurt to apply for it if you feel like you're doing everything you can to get a second bite at the apple. But that's how that works. All right. And yeah, and check out the USCIS website. It's really comparable to what you filed with your I-130 petition, and proof that I-130 had been filed. But check out the USCIS website, and you'll actually see a lot of that information that I just shared too, about historically the reasons that it was created. So it's unfortunate that it doesn't create a faster option for couples who are married, because the wait times really are long. Okay. So Wonder if you can help. You went to the courthouse for your marriage license and they would not accept your deed poll. So I bet I'm guessing you're from the UK if you were doing like a name change deed poll. And your passport was in your old name. Oh, I was married using this name. However, when I filed in the change name. Okay, so I'm not sure if I understand the second part. Let's just do one question at a time. So I don't know. Hopefully you were able to get married. Courthouses, clerk's office, their job is to confirm your identity. And they do that typically through a passport or a driver's license. So they'd be looking at that document, and that's the name that they would use. That makes sense that they didn't accept your name deed poll because they have to go by the passport. They wouldn't be able to go by name change documents. Your identity documents would have had to already have been updated with the proper name. And then let me see about your second. When you filled in the changed name, so I don't know if you mean you sent this to the clerk's office or if you sent this to immigration, but the proper process for changing your name in the US is, whether you're going through an immigration process or not, is that once you get married, your marriage license, your marriage certificate, that's proof of your name change for changing your last name. And then when you go through the immigration process, you would indicate that is the last name that you're wanting to use. And then immigration would be able to print your work permit and green card with that name. In the US, if you're not going through an immigration process, that name change document is your marriage certificate. And so you'd go to the Social Security office and then update your last name and then go through updating all of your identity documents like your driver's license. So if I'm understanding you correctly, it sounds like you were able to get married, that the clerk's office had to use the name on your passport. That makes sense. And then when you go through the immigration process, you'd indicate that last name that you're wanting to use. You can only change the last name though. There are some states. There's one of our paralegals and I, Catherine and I, name change laws are so complex and they actually vary based on state, even in the U.S. And so there are some states where they'll let you change your middle name, but immigration won't allow you to do that. They only let you do the last name. So I was nerding out a little bit on immigration and going on a tangent, but hopefully that helps answer your question. Okay. So your daughter who is the beneficiary, you completed the DS-160. Okay. So I'm going in a little blind here, but I'm understanding that perhaps you are going through a fiance visa process and that your daughter is going through the K2 derivative process, that she is coming to the US with you when you come on the fiance visa. So, and if you need a welcome letter. So typically with the fiance visa process, once your petition is approved and then you receive the NVC email that gives you the case number, and from there you have to wait for the US Embassy in Nairobi to give you instructions that you're able to start the next steps. That next step process is for the beneficiary, the primary beneficiary, the K1, and the child K2. So everybody has to complete all of the steps. All right. But congratulations on getting to that point in your case. You're getting closer. All right. I'm scrolling down. I have a lot of questions here. All right. So Natalie, great to have you. So what do you do if this is the first year you make less than $25,000 a year because you're going to school to become a phlebotomist? That's awesome. Good for you. So you can be better financially positioned to sponsor your man and you're from Michigan. So the affidavit of support piece of the green card process, that's required whether you're going through a fiance or a spouse visa process. That requirement is that you have to show that you make enough money to be the sole sponsor of your fiance or spouse's immigration case. And you meet that requirement. The evidence that you have to provide to show you meet that requirement is your income. So your tax returns, paycheck stubs, employment letter. Immigration is going to determine if you are eligible based on your tax return from the most recent year. So for example, you would be providing your 2023 taxes right now, and they would look at that total income line. So the affidavit of support requirement doesn't happen until later in the process. So it depends on whether or not you're doing a fiance or a spouse visa. For our clients, what we do at the beginning is we give them an overview, of course, of the process, and then when we are getting closer to the affidavit of support piece, we will set up a strategy based on when we anticipate the case getting to that phase, because that will happen at the consular interview phase of the case. So for spouse visa cases, that's typically a whole year later that we would have to be worried about that requirement. So we can proactively prepare, and depending on whether or not you're doing the fiance or spouse visa, we can proactively prepare and say, hey, my 2023 tax return doesn't show that I make enough, that I make less than that required amount. But next year, my 2024 taxes, it will show that I've made more, depending on your income. And then from there, if you're still, if you're still in school, if you're finishing school, if you're below that income requirement for your household size, you can look at assets. So assets would be if you own a home or if you have any kind of retirement or savings accounts. That's something that we look at, or potentially a joint sponsor. So a friend or family member who's a citizen or a resident that could be a joint sponsor. So that's kind of what you will have to do. I know it's complex. The affidavit of support is a little bit of a beast, but if you don't anticipate making enough, then we can look at assets and we can look at joint sponsorship, and we can throw some videos here in the comments for you to take a look at, some videos where I dive into those topics in even more detail. But hopefully that helps. And I'm always happy to speak with you privately in a consultation, and we can go through your income and what you anticipate to make in your assets and all of that, and do a deeper dive to outline a strategy. So that's another option. But Julie will throw those videos in for you about the affidavit of support and how much you have to make. And then here's our website, immigrationforcouples.com, if you want to schedule a private appointment. All right. Well, good luck with school. That's awesome that you want to be a phlebotomist. All right. All right. So how long does it usually take to get a consular interview for Morocco? So interview wait times really vary. I would say that that's one of the longer wait times, that you're looking at least a solid 6 to 8 months. Sometimes it can be longer. But yeah, I would say a solid 6 to 8 months. It can definitely be a little less or a little more, but in general, that's kind of what we're looking at. All right. You're very welcome. All right. Let's see. Oh, something happening outside. Okay. Can my spouse from the Netherlands visit once you filed the petition? He currently lives with his parents. Okay, that he's been told by others that he wouldn't allow him a visit because he has no proof that he would return to his country. So if your spouse already has authorization, like a tourist visa, for example, to be able to come and visit the US, it is possible for individuals to come and visit while the spouse or fiance visa process is ongoing. We have clients do that all the time. But the reality is that every entry is discretionary, which means immigration is going to look at the circumstances of the entry. Why are you coming? Is it really just to visit? And do you have enough ties that are pulling you back to the Netherlands? Do you have things like a job or obligations at home that you need to go back and complete? It also will depend on if he's come to the US before. So if you have a track record where you've come on, a tourist visa or ESTA, for example, and you've come and you've just made short trips and short visits and show you've complied with immigration rules and requirements in the past, that's helpful. That's a helpful track record. So the answer is it possible? Yes. Is it possible that immigration could tell him no and turn him around and send him home? Yes, that's possible. That's possible too. So that's just the reality of coming on a visitor type visa. Okay, Eds, this is a great question. So you have been seeing cases of spouse visa applications that were just recently filed that have already received approvals. Aside from being expedited, what are possible reasons this happens when applicants are from the same country? From what we were told before, it's supposed to be a first in, first out process. From what you were told, that is correct. We do have clients that will file an application, and that's for spouse visas, for removal of condition, for naturalization, all of the above, fiance visas, and they can be filed at the same time, or even an application that was filed after can get a decision faster. We call those our unicorn cases. So the factors that go into why a case might be approved sooner, even if it's the same country, if it seems that all of the other aspects of the case are the same as another one, is it really comes down to where that case is being filed. So everybody files their applications at a lockbox. So that's like really a mail center or a hub where all applications go depending on where you live. And then from there, those applications are assigned to different field offices and different officers. So depending on ultimately the service center that your case is assigned, and then from there, it depends on the immigration officer that's assigned to the case. If you get a newer immigration officer that's still learning the ropes and needs more support from supervising officers to be able to complete their review, that could cause it to take longer than someone whose application went to a more seasoned officer who tends to get through their stack a little faster. It also can come down to where in the stack you are. So I've seen inside or behind the scenes, right, of immigration offices, and their mail rooms are huge, and they have multiple people who are taking these cases and scanning them in. And depending on how your application, they are moving to a more electronic platform, but they do have warehouses with paper files where they using forklifts to move boxes of files. Typically, immigration officers aren't having your paper file to review your application unless you have an interview. But it does have to do with who in the mailroom got the application and how they scanned it in. And then ultimately from there, like I said, the immigration officer, the service center. So there's a lot of factors and where you fell in that stack of scans, and the list goes on. It is supposed to be first in, first out, but the reality is with the thousands and thousands of applications that they receive and their processes and procedures, sometimes an individual will be able to get a decision faster than others. And like I said, we call those unicorn cases, but that's a little bit of the why. It's a common question. It's a good question. All right. And if everybody's enjoying the show here today, and if you're finding this helpful, we really appreciate it. If you want to give a thumbs up or just let me know that this is helpful, it really let me know you're alive, that I'm giving you helpful information, that everybody's staying awake. All right. So we are a same-sex couple. Fiance is 78 and me 30 years, and I have a relationship. Okay. So, yeah, great question. So, immigration has a long list of what they consider to be red flags or things that don't fit into their typical list. The white picket fence and their list of what they see a relationship to be, a standard relationship, if you will. That would be immigration terms. I don't agree with the red flags, but they have them, and one of them is an age difference, a significant age difference. And then if you have had other prior marriages, or if you've petitioned other people in the past, even certain countries are considered to be red flag countries where they will look more closely. Nigeria is one that comes top of mind, where immigration will look more closely and scrutinize the relationship more. So they have this list of red flags, and then it's your burden, whether or not you have these red flags. It's really the burden of any couple who's going through the immigration process to show immigration, hey, our love is real. In terms of how much evidence, I had a professor in law school that would always say, and it's a very great quote when she said it's the weight of the evidence and also the weight of the evidence. And so it's a legal joke, but literally the physical weight of the evidence isn't important, but more importantly, the quality is what she means by the weight of the evidence and the weight of the evidence. So I can't say you should have 200 pages of evidence. There isn't like a set amount of pages of evidence. You want to make sure that your evidence, the quality of your evidence that you're providing shows that you have a real relationship. So, how do you do that? You can do that through time. So, showing longevity of your relationship, that you have known each other for a long time. So, for example, proof of communications, text messages, trips that you've taken over a longer period of time. Photos are great. Photos are great evidence. Immigration has a list of what they consider to be the strongest evidence and then what they consider to be weaker evidence. And so immigration and immigration officers, I've heard them say this many times, we like to see photos and we like to see letters of support and friends from friends and family, but that's lower level evidence. Like they expect to see that, but that's not going to make or break your case, because immigration's position is you could stage photos or you can get anyone to write a letter. That doesn't mean you don't include them. And the photos that you include, you want to make sure, like I said, that they are covering a period of time. So you don't want to have, 10 photos that are all from the same day, because that's really like one piece of evidence. You want photos that show, different times that you're doing different activities, different clothes because it's a different day, and over a longer period of time. So there's a Goldilocks standard, if you will, and that's going to depend on your particular case and your love story. That's why when individuals ask, what evidence should I include? It's like, well, there's a standard list of evidence, but then maybe you've adopted a pet together. That's a fun, unique piece of relationship evidence that other couples might not have, that you would include in your case. Or, maybe if you happen to be living together. Some couples, even if the immigrant beneficiary is abroad, they happen to be able to be live together, and so you might have that lease agreement or bills in the same name. So it's really going to depend on your particular relationship. It sounds like you have a lot of evidence. That's great. How much will really depend on the types of evidence, and I would encourage you to check out our free resource center. As you can see, this is a big question with a really big answer. I just came back from a national immigration attorney conference, and we had a 2-hour seminar where we talked about relationship evidence. So this is a big topic that doesn't have an easy answer. So I encourage you to check out our free resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. I put it there below. We have a relationship evidence guide that really goes into more detail about relationship evidence. And always, like I've said earlier, if you want to schedule a personal private consultation with me, the phone number is below, and Lisa and Taylor can get you scheduled, or you can schedule on my calendar and we can talk about your particular case. But check out that free resource center and that relationship evidence guide. Great question. I love to talk about relationship evidence. All right. So, how long is it taking lately to get a fiance visa in the Philippines? So for most of our clients, the very first step, the petition, that's going to be about the same wait time for everyone, except for those unicorn cases like Ed's question about why some happen sooner. So for that first step, we've had clients get a decision on the petition in a month. Others has taken more like 4 to 6 months. And then from there, you're talking about the actual interview and what we're seeing. So we've had clients that will get an interview about a month later, due to the weather and the storm and everything that and flooding that happened in the Philippines. The Manila immigration office was closed, and they had to cancel some interviews. And they have said that right now they have limited availability, but they're working on opening up their calendar and getting those canceled interviews rescheduled. So we've had most people getting their interviews in like October. So I'd say it really does vary, but typically after the petition is approved, it takes a month or two for the file to be transferred, and then you're scheduling your own interview. We're seeing that most people are scheduling their interview about 30 to 90 days out, give or take. And it really varies because sometimes there's cancellations, and we've had individuals who've been able to grab an interview even faster. So it's just a matter of checking that calendar every day, multiple times a day for an interview to be available. But I'd say 30 to 90 days, give or take. All right. Hi from Canada. It's nice to have you with us. All right. I need to get a drink. Goodness. Hello, Maria. It's great to have you with us. And you would like to know if you can work remotely for my current foreign company in Spain while waiting for your work permit under the K1 visa. So, um, the fiance visa process, and when you are going through the adjustment of status process, you're not supposed to work in the United States until you have that work permit or green card. The laws regarding working in the US and most immigration and nationality act laws were created and written before remote work was even conceived as a possibility. And so this remote work component has not been specifically addressed by USCIS. They do have their policy manual that talks about remote work. But in general, is as long as the company for whom you are working is not a US company and there aren't ties to the US and you're not performing work within the US that you would need to be in the US for, typically remote work can be okay, but this is going to be very, very fact specific on your particular situation. So I would really need to know more details about the company, the work you'd be performing, whether or not you had how long you've been working for this company, if you had been working remotely before. So you can see there's a whole list of things that I would want to go through with you and ask you to make sure that conclusively that it is or isn't okay for you to work and that you wouldn't be violating any immigration laws. And so I'm happy to speak with you privately in a consultation about your specific situation. In general, I would say as long as it's a foreign company without ties, it can be okay, and it will depend a little bit on your immigration officer as well for the interview. So, as you're all seeing, there aren't always easy answers to immigration questions. There's so much complexity and nuance. All right, and then you also want to know if I made a mistake by giving the X-ray envelope to the airport. So you wouldn't be giving any X-rays to the airport. I don't know if you mean customs when you came into the US. The only thing you have to give to customs is an envelope that says "do not open." So you wouldn't be giving them X-rays. So I'm not sure. Unfortunately, customs in the airport, if you give them things, it's shocking that they will take things without question. Unless that was the envelope that said "do not open," there shouldn't have been anything you would have given to the airport or customs. But if it was just the X-rays, you should be able to get another set of those from the civil surgeon from the doctor's office if needed. I have a couple more minutes. I'll try to get through as many questions as I can. There's a lot. I'm not going to be able to get through all of these. Okay. All right. I'll do my best. Let me get my bearings straight and see where my last question was. I'm streaming on 4 different platforms, and so I'm answering questions in the order that I receive them. So your fiance visa petition was approved on July 9th. Yay, congratulations. That's super exciting. And it's valid until November 7th. Fiance in the Philippines. How much longer will it take before the consulate interview is scheduled? So if it was approved July 9th, then the next step is keep an eye on your email for the National Visa Center email, giving you the case number. From there, you'll be getting an email from the U.S. consulate in Manila, letting you know you can take the next steps. And then from there, you'd be able to get in and pay the fee and schedule an interview. And so, like I had said earlier, it really is just going to depend on when you're looking at the calendar and what happens to be open. Sometimes you can get an interview within 30 days. Other times it might take a few months. So, but good luck. Congratulations. That's awesome. All right. Okay. So you submitted your removal conditions in 2022 and it's still pending. Oof, I know. The wait times are super long for removal of conditions. Do you recommend submitting the naturalization even if the removal condition is not yet approved and you're still married with a U.S. citizen? So in general, what we do for our clients is when we file removal of condition, we put our clients on a track that the following year, as long as they're eligible, And as long as they don't have concerns about losing citizenship in their country of origin, we put them on a track where we will file naturalization at the 3-year mark. It will really depend too on the strength of your relationship evidence, your immigration history, if there's any criminal history. There are certain factors in certain situations where filing a naturalization application isn't a good idea. But in general, we put our clients on a track where we would want to file that naturalization application. And then we go through a process of informing immigration that the naturalization application was filed, and we use that to push the removal of conditions case forward. So that's definitely what we do for our clients, so long as you're eligible and there aren't any concerning factors that would cause us to say no, filing isn't a safe idea. All right. But great question. And I did make a video on that as like a tip that you can legally, you're allowed to file naturalization while the I-751 is pending. But again, just making sure that you're eligible and there aren't any factors like that. But hopefully you get a decision soon and good luck if you decide to file naturalization. All right, Lisa. So if your son gets married abroad and she still has her ESTA, can she come back even if they let her in and adjust status? So you cannot come to the United States on ESTA or a tourist visa with the intent to get married and stay and file for your green card application. Even if you were married abroad, if you are coming with that intention to file an application, file adjustment of status and stay, that's not the proper path. Immigration doesn't allow, and I know for a lot of couples are like, that doesn't make sense. Why is that not possible? It's faster. We want to be together. But immigration, they don't allow that. Adjustment of status is for limited situations where a person was here for a limited time, like a student visa, for example, and then after coming on the student visa, met and fell in love, and then there's an option for adjustment of status. For all other couples, the options are a fiance and a spouse visa. And Lisa, I would definitely, at a minimum, encourage you to watch, I'll put that in here, my webinar that talks about the different options that are available to couples before they get married. Because if being together as soon as possible is what they're wanting, we would definitely want to look at both the spouse and fiance visa options to see which is more in alignment and what is the best path for them. And of course, I'm happy to speak with them privately in a consultation to talk about their specific goals and their specific case and give my advice on what I see as the best path. But definitely getting married and then coming and filing adjustment of status isn't going to be an option. Okay, so I'm glad you're asking that because it breaks my heart when couples hear online that they can do that. And what can happen is if you do that, you'll get to your immigration interview and immigration can say you committed fraud and misrepresentation. And that causes a lot of problems for couples that you don't want to have. So I don't want to be in a position where I'm having that conversation with you. And I know you're a very proactive person and you've been coming here on a regular basis and educating yourself. So I know you won't do that. Okay, so somebody's asking me questions about Canadian immigration. I can't answer questions about Canadian immigration. I'm a U.S. immigration attorney, but you can definitely find an immigration attorney in Canada to help you. Yeah, so my answer is still the same, even if you're married. Wait times are pretty long. I'd say a solid, like I said, 6 to 8 months, probably more, give or take. So. So your fiance visa, it was filed on July 5th and you got your receipt notice. And when will you get another letter? So after the receipt notice, you would either get a request for evidence or an approval. And that can take, well, we're seeing on average 4 to 6 months. We've had individuals get decisions much faster. But I'd say on average, that's kind of what we're seeing. Yeah. And then, so, yep. And Betty, this question I answered earlier. I don't know if you were here. Is it possible to visit the United States while a fiance visa is pending? Yes, immigration is going to look at, when the person enters, immigration is going to look at all the circumstances surrounding the entry, such as, has this person come before? How long have they stayed before? Have they ever overstayed? Do you have a job back home? Why are you coming to visit? And they want to make sure that you have ties to your country of origin. So is it possible to visit? Yes, absolutely. Is there always a possibility that the immigration agents at the border can turn you away? Yes, unfortunately. All right. I am running out of time here, so I really appreciate everybody's questions. Unfortunately, I can't get to all of them. I know Julie threw in a lot of great resources here for everyone. Please check out our free resource center. I'll throw that up one more time here, immigrationforcouples.com. And again, I'm always happy to speak with any of you in a private consultation. You can schedule that online or call the office. All right. I will take a look at the questions that I was not able to get to here today, and I might lead with some of those like I did here at the start this morning, go over some of the questions that I'm asked. And then I will always go through these questions, and oftentimes will give me the ideas of videos to make for YouTube. And because if you have the question, likely others do. So I will go through all these and I'll do my best. Um, yeah, and I'll do my best. All right. I just am like, oh, I'm just a little like, wow, there's so many people today, and that's awesome. But it's really great to be with all of you. I will be here again next week, next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Um, all right. All right, everyone. Take care. I'll see you next week. Bye.